Well, this time the project is for the old Harley here, the old 2001 Ultra Classic. She's pretty well torn apart here as far as getting this swing arm thing upgraded, replaced, what have you. But I was doing some reading and discovered that these old first gen twin cam swing arms were subject to cracking. And well, by God, right there, it's cracked. And it goes all the way through. Let's see if I can get this flipped over here. All the way in to where the axle bolts. So, I decided that rather than try to repair that, I'd go through the process of upgrading to the 2002 to, I believe it's 2008 swing arm, which is this one here. And as you can see, I mean, that's a much more robust. I have company here. Hey, what are you doing? What do you want? You smell like a dog. Now go on, get out of here. You're not much of a mechanic. Anyway, so I bought the Cycle, what is it, Custom Cycle Engineering, I guess it is, adapter kit. These are 5/8 spherical bore. Well, let's see, no, the spacer there is a 5/8 bore, which goes into the spherical bearing, and that bore is 3/4 inch. It was a little spendy. I was kind of shocked to see what actually came in the kit. There was only 4 or 5 pieces, well, I guess 6 pieces or something. But any which way, it was going to be a whole lot cheaper to do that, to spend that money, than it would be to remove the transmission, which would probably mean the whole thing, you know, the transmission and engine, and bore the rear transmission case to accommodate the 3/4 inch shaft that there came with. And I bought that off of eBay. I think I gave like $100 for it. What I was surprised at is a new one, if they can be sourced, was someplace in the neighborhood of, I want to say, $1,200. And it didn't come with the bearings or anything. I mean, it's just the swing arm. So decided to go this route, and I finally got all of my parts. I'm gonna see about getting this thing going here and getting started putting it back together. But one other thing that I thought maybe I could do, and I don't know, maybe other people have tried this, I elected not to. I just bought a different wheel. What I was gonna do was have this bore bored out. Now right now that's 1 inch. It will accommodate the axle shaft for the upgraded swing arm. However, it only will accommodate the axle shaft. There's a spacer that has to go in between where this bearing was and the other side. So again, for, I believe it was $100, it might have been more, I can't remember now, I opted to go with a newer wheel. This wheel here, I believe, is off a 2005, 2006 maybe, Road King. And as you can see, it's a little different. This one here has got this step in it. This is the original one. Again, this is a, get this flipped over here. This is a 3/4 inch shaft, and this one here is a 1 inch. I've got to pull that screw out and put it in here yet, but so anyway, and this one here has got a little bit different profile than the other one did. I went ahead and bought a new tire. As long as I was out there at the dealer, I said there's no point in putting that old Michelin back on there. They didn't have any Michelins, so in my opinion, the American Elite is probably as good. Maybe not quite as good, but it's what they had, so that's what I'm going to use. So we will get started on this thing here, and I'll try to take a little more video footage here as this whole disaster comes back into something that could be considered a motorcycle. Okay, so now we've got the swing arm is sort of in, I guess you could say. Was wrestling with this silly thing, and I thought, well, geez, what the hell am I going to use? I tried a 2x3 back here, and that didn't seem to do it. Scrounged around in the shop here, and I found this rather lengthy bungee cord, and it seemed to do the trick, because you got to have another set of hands down in here, you know, to hold this thing up as you're trying to slide that pivot shaft through the, you can't really see it, but it's sort of back in there someplace. Anyway, where the back of the transmission case, that 5/8 shaft. Now see, here's the deal. This being a 2001, that shaft right there, that pivot shaft is 5/8. All right, well, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't feel like I wanted any part of trying to bore that transmission case out. I don't know how much meat is back there and how straight I can get a drill to go in there. So that kind of brought me to, well, do I take this whole thing out? Because it looks like you'd have to take the whole engine and everything out to get that to a machine shop and have it bored out accurately. Well, so for the $400 or whatever it was for that custom cycle engineering kit, I can retain my 5/8 pivot shaft and then upgrade to this newer style swing arm. So so far it's kind of looking like maybe this is how it's supposed to be. Now I talked to Tim, I believe is the man's name that works down there. He's the tech support guy. And if anybody else wants to do this job, Tim is a wealth of knowledge. And it sounded as though he may have worked for Harley Davidson designing this first generation twin cam chassis, or had something to do with it. I couldn't quite remember what that was all about. But in any event, the guy was a wealth of knowledge. When I took this apart, this shaft was actually in this side here is this nut is welded to the shaft, so it doesn't come off. There's a nut on the other side that is threaded, and it threads on and off and what have you. Well, it's supposed to be threaded on there and Loctited, and when I took it apart, there's a spacer that goes on the end of that shaft, which was again on this side. The nut, when I pulled a little chrome cap off of this cover that goes right here, in fact it's this cover here, which actually I believe goes this way, and you can kind of see what goes on there. That nut, as I pulled this chrome cap off right here, that nut fell out on the floor, and that spacer was underneath that shaft laying in that bore. And I thought, I don't know what in the world happened here, if the guy that did the work on it the last time just simply didn't torque it, didn't Loctite it. I'm not sure what his deal was. But in talking to Tim, he indicated to me that that's a real common failure point because of the way that swing arm, it does this number back here, and it'll actually start working on that nut. Again, this shaft was turned around the other direction, so this was a nut out here rather than a threaded gizmo, welded gizmo. And in any event, it starts working on that nut and it'll back it off, no matter how much Loctite is on it or how tight they get it or what have you. So he said, Tim again at Custom Cycle Engineering, gave me the heads up to turn this thing around so that it's now rotating when it wants to pivot up and down, or in a circular motion rather. It won't back that nut off. And so that seemed to be good advice, and I can see now exactly what the man's talking about. The one thing, again, if anybody's got one of these old Harleys, these first gen twin cams, the one thing that I've been reading about and different people I've spoken to said that I got lucky, because what happens is this shaft will gall in the transmission case, because the transmission case is aluminum, this shaft is steel. And what ends up happening with dissimilar metals is corrosion, and then it galls together and you can't get it out. I've seen some guys use big sledgehammers and a drift to drive that out. Seems to work, but I didn't have to do that. All I had to do was use I think it was a rather lengthy Phillips screwdriver. Yeah, it's over here. A number 3 Phillips. I don't know how long that is, a foot or what have you. And I was able to get on the end of that and drive that shaft out, and it came right out. That's because there was a ton of anti-seize around the shaft and in the transmission case bore. So I made sure that I used copper this time. The last guy used nickel, which I guess works all right. But this time it's copper, so it's a little higher temp. And I gooped it up good, and so I think we're in good shape as far as that part is concerned. So we'll keep plodding along here and see what happens next. Okay, well, I screwed up a little bit on that last little segment there. Actually, the rubber swing arm isolators have to go on before, but I got to go on, what am I trying to say here? You put the pivot shaft through the rubber swing arm isolator, and of course your spacers and all the rest of it. And then you get in there, you torque that down to, it's 40 to 45 foot-pounds. I went 42. That's after, of course, you put on the rear foot peg, or floorboard mount, I guess is what they call that. It's on both sides. But I think this is going to be a whole lot better setup here. I mean, it feels much more solid. I was a little concerned at first. It seemed like it wanted to move around. Well, of course it was moving around because it wasn't attached to anything really. But anyway, so yeah, it seems like this might be a good place to stop for the night because it's, well, it's 8:34 and it's almost past my bedtime. But anyway, well, that's it for this clip. Okay, well, this is day 2 here of trying to get this silly thing put back together. Got it pretty well there. Just want to kind of go over some of the things that I found it kind of a pain in the butt. First thing was putting new brakes in there. There's only one way that those pads can go in, and I fought with that for a couple of minutes until it finally figured out that I got to be smarter than the brake pads. So I observed and overcame. And then getting this caliper back in, as the wheel was, you know, I let the jack down onto the axle and what have you. And I was fighting this caliper. So what I ended up doing there was taking off this brake line, and it simply threads back in here. I'll get to that in a second. The other thing you got to watch for, there's a short spacer on this side, and then of course it goes underneath the brake caliper up against the swing arm, your adjusting cam, and then of course the lock nut. Over here on this side, you want to coat everything with anti-seize. That doesn't necessarily mean the exhaust pipe, but since the exhaust pipe is coated with anti-seize, chances are it won't rust. But this actually went together pretty well. The next thing I got to do, of course, now is you know, snug everything up and then get it aligned. I'll have to run some strings and a few things to do that, I think, but we'll get it all checked out here and see how it goes. But so far it looks like it's just about ready to go, I think. I mean, here in another 3 or 4 hours I should be out ripping around, I think, and see what kind of damage we can cause. But so we'll get this thing going again here as soon as I get it all buttoned up and check for, you know, any binding or anything like that. But for now it looks like it's going along here reasonably well. Another thing I ran into here that was kind of an eye-opener, that cam to adjust the belt tension, this ear has got to be underneath that shock mount, because if you don't put it there, it causes all kinds of hell. This side was good. When I get over here, and I've got it fixed now, but it was actually, I'd installed this cam, flipped around the other way to where the ear, which I guess you can't really see it, sort of right here, was riding over here. So if you're going to do this job, be aware that those obviously have to be oriented the same way, and that's the way they have to be, is again underneath that bottom shock mount. One other thing too, I guess I should be getting paid by Progressive for all the frickin' Progressive parts I put on these bikes. These old Harleys had air assist or air ride, or anyway, these shocks were air shocks, and they are an absolute joke. This is the port for the air shocks in the rear. This is the port for the forks that were air. So anyway, in one of my other videos there, I said that I'd put Progressive fork struts in the front forks on this bike, and I just ran it down the road a couple of miles after I did that, and what a difference. And that's when I discovered that this swing arm was cracked. So it's only got about 2 miles or 4 miles or something on it since I did the forks, but just kind of a little bit of an overview of this old thing. That engine right there, that started out life as an 88 twin cam. It's now I believe it's a 90, yeah, it's a 95. All the internals are S&S. It's got gear drive 585s in it. I sent the heads to S&S to have them work their magic on them. So anyway, they put oversized valves, stiffer springs in it. It's got roller rockers, of course, roller lifters, adjustable push rods, an S&S Super E. I don't remember what in the world kind of an ignition source this thing has got now. Let's see if I can clean that off at all. And well, anyway, it's that. But the cruise control and everything works. Somebody else was on a forum the other day. They're talking about how they'd like to do this job on an older twin cam. I think it was a 2001, in fact. They were concerned about the cruise control not working and one thing and the other. And it does work. It works just fine. So the only thing that I would not recommend doing, now I haven't had any trouble with it, but it's noisy, and that is, it's kind of hard to see because it's all dusty and yucky. That's an Ultima 6-speed. You can buy that gear set. I think I paid $500 for it here a few years ago. I didn't put it in. I had another guy do it. It works okay. The bike just really doesn't have enough power unless you want to run 90 miles an hour all day long, which I don't care to do, to actually use that 6th gear. So 4th gear and 6th gear are pretty noisy, and I made sure I went 500 miles on the first oil change, dumped it, refilled it with Redline shockproof, whatever that bubblegum looking stuff is. That's all that's ever been in this. Every time I change the oil, and now that it's broke in, I change it like I do the rest of the gearboxes, or all the oils, is at 5,000 miles. There's not any metal on it at all. Again, I just think it was kind of a waste of money. I should have just kept that 5-speed, but that's what's in it now, so we'll see how long it lasts. But, you know, it's an old bike. It's nothing like one of these new ones. It's certainly nothing like this one over here, and I got a new wheel and tire for that one, so my wife will look cool going down the road. But anyway, just kind of a brief overview of this old thing here, and we're getting kind of near the end of this project. So just the cam adjusters there for the axle shaft, just be aware of those if you're going to do this, that you know, they got to be oriented like that. Okay, we got the thing pretty well buttoned up here. Just wanted to check the alignment on it. So what I did is I ran a string down around there, and it comes right on the edge of the tire, the rear tire. Okay, so then the next thing you want to check is how is it coming across the front tire? Well, same deal. It's right on the money, which I can't hardly believe, but I mean, of course, you know, you want to make sure that your handlebars are squared up, and you want to have that same contact point on both sides, and as you can see, it is. So what that will tell you is whether or not the engine is, if I get my greasy old yucky hand in there, if the engine is this way or this way, engine and transmission in the frame, because these old bikes have one engine mount, well, and it's down under here. So basically it sits on a triangle. So there's the engine mount, there's the adjustment for side to side, and then someplace up underneath the gas tank, I think under here, is the one to adjust. I guess it'd be, well, you know, an airplane, I think it'd be yaw, or no, it wouldn't be, there'd be roll. So anyway, we're not flying an airplane. Sometimes I wonder. So the next thing you want to check to see if your roll, or whatever the hell they call it, is correct, is you want to put a magnetic level down here on your rotor, because your rotor is in line with the wheel, which is in line with the transmission, because the swing arm is bolted to the transmission. Well, it's a little off level right there, but so is this. If I get all the wires and junk out of the way, you can see there that it's, oh, this is tricky with one hand. But now you put that thing level, like that is, and I can't really do this with any measure of success, but you can see there that that's plumb, well, I'm sorry, level. No, it's plumb. This is level. So I don't know how it happened. I got lucky. Everything is sitting right where it's supposed to be. As long as this bike stays sitting where it's supposed to be, it's kind of in a precarious place. But I think it's time to go for a test ride here and see what kind of disaster I've created. My only concern at this point is right down here. That belt, on these old bikes, the belt's 1.5 inches wide. 2002, I think it was, they changed them to 1.25 inches. So this is all the old pulley and everything off of the original swing arm and what have you. So that belt is very close to the tire. We're going to find out if that's going to be an issue or not. Supposedly it's good to go, but you know, the proof is in the pudding, or the truth is in a test ride, I guess, or something. So anyway, that's kind of wrapping the whole thing up for now, and if it all comes crashing to a halt, well, then I guess I'll post that. Well, it's a huge improvement. I don't normally advertise this, but up to about 100 miles an hour, maybe not quite. Anybody who's law enforcement, I was only doing 55, but up to passing speed, we'll say, it's absolutely rock solid. There is no wobble at all, whereas before you get up around 80, and it kind of started a little bit of a wobble. You didn't really want to ride it much more than about 95 or so, which I don't normally anyway. I just wanted to see what it would do and how it would act. But I think it's a done deal. put the bags back on it, and we'll call it a day, and then do that. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching.